Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TIMEOUT Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Bruckman. Joining us this week, our special guest is a marketing, branding, social media expert and entrepreneur who graduated from St. Bonaventure University with a master's degree in business before he turned 21 years old. He has managed to start his own vodka company, which has won several awards in Monkey and Paradise Vodka after relocating to West Palm Beach in Florida. He continues to have a massive impact on the next generation of entrepreneurs using Instagram for his aviation platform, which has over 800,000 followers, where he's able to engage often with over 2 million impressions a week. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our special guest this week, Mr. Alex Kowtun. Alex, how we doing, man?
Hey, Ari, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Appreciate you being on. So you are remarkable in terms of what you've been able to accomplish when you were younger, before you even kind of got into the industry here, man. If you can kind of talk about what was it at a young age that allowed you to have that consistent, disciplined work ethic that it takes to be successful?
Sure. So I grew up middle class in Buffalo, New York, and I always saw airplanes flying overhead. Love that. I was a car guy. So Motor Trend magazine. I wanted to have a nice car. I liked boats, never had boats or anything like that. So I knew the only way to achieve that is by hard work and making myself successful.
Definitely. And when you think about who played a major role for you, obviously you look at a lot of people when they're younger, it's somebody in their industry or it's a celebrity like a Kobe Bryant type of thing, right? Where you kind of look at somebody who's had massive success and you say, wow, I want to be like them. Did you have anybody in your life like that? Or was it somebody that was kind of closer to home that you knew personally?
Well, I thought I could do it on my own. So I went to college, went to grad school, got my Series 7 even to be a stockbroker. Then I saw that wasn't the right path, and I saw I needed more of an entrepreneurial path. So I found one of the most successful people in Buffalo, New York, and said, I'll work for you for free. I just want to learn entrepreneurship. So I did that. I did about a year and a half just working for free and doing everything from getting coffee to flying on private jets. And that was my motivation. And that's how I really learned business.
You talk about the aviation aspect. It seems to be a big part of your life. What kind of allowed that to be, kind of at the top of the list there in terms of, helping you go and seek somebody out who was in that industry to learn from?
Sure. So I always loved aviation. And when I was still living in Buffalo, after I started my first business, I was able to start flying lessons, but wasn't able to finish them in Buffalo because the economy tanked. So I went through some hard times, got back on my feet. Then I moved to West Palm Beach, Florida for opportunity. Shortly after I did that, NASA ended the space program. And that really bothered me. And I didn't finish my pilot's license yet. But I knew kids weren't going to have astronauts to look up to as mentors. So I was worried about the aviation industry. And I said, you know what? I'm going to finish my pilot's license, make it a focus of mine so I can be a top public figure in aviation and keep the kids excited. So that was my driving force initially.
When people hear aviation these days, Alex, they think of if anything space related, they think of Elon Musk, right? And they think of SpaceX and they think of some of the things he's been able to achieve. Can you talk a little bit about building your own business from that perspective in an industry that's shaky and often isn't necessarily consistent, can be challenging, and just some of the stuff that you've seen?
Yeah, so Elon did the impossible. I mean, nobody would have thought that a private company could do what he's done. And unfortunately, NASA should have really waited until SpaceX was there. So it's disappointing to see that we took a 10-year break in space and relied on Russia to get astronauts to the space station. So it bothers me what the timing was. But it's incredible that Elon has went all in with his personal money and achieved success. And I think it's such a motivating story showing that you can do anything if you want it bad enough.
When you're younger, I know I kind of mentioned what you were able to do in terms of your academics at St. Bonaventure. And but that period of time before you launched Monkey in Paradise and you graduated from St. Bonaventure, you worked for several companies that were in the financial sector. How were those companies, the responsibilities and roles that you played there? How did that teach you what you needed to know about learning how to run your own business before you decided to go in and launch Monkey in Paradise?
It taught me that I wanted nothing to do with corporate America. It taught me that is not my space and I need to figure out something on my own because it was just not a fit. It was unproductive, a waste of my time, and I was not performing to my fullest. That's what I learned.
Tell me what specifically, because I think there are people right now who are either at their job and their company, or if you want to call it their side hustle right now, it's a hobby for them, right? They want to make that jump, but there's that comfort and the security, right? The 401k, there's a lot of structure in a corporate job, which almost for some people makes them feel like they're trapped, right? It's too good to leave because, well, what could happen if you don't have that, right? Can you talk about what specifically it was for you that made you say, you know what, this isn't for me, and I realized there's more out there if I just apply the work ethic I did when I was younger?
Sure. So it was my personal level of happiness. I was not satisfied being in an office from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And it just didn't feel good. Then what happened was starting this liquor brand, it was off doing what I loved. I was entertaining people at my condo, and people would mix up their drinks. So I came up with the idea with a couple of my friends that we're going to put plastic monkeys on people's drinks, just so you know whose are whose. So a blue monkey on your drink, a red one on mine, orange on somebody else's. And this is just to know whose drinks are whose. And then we go out to the bars with these monkeys, and people say, what is that? Can I have one? It became a conversation starter, which I love because people are meeting new people, networking, and having a better social experience. So I just gave these monkeys out to people, and people would send me pictures of a little plastic monkey out snowboarding, on a cruise, out at a bar. And I got sick of getting these pictures. So I said, Instagram's for pictures. It's a monkey. West Palm Beach is paradise. Monkey in Paradise Instagram. And there was no idea for a liquor brand. It was just a silly idea of a monkey on a drink that became an icebreaker and a social movement. Then the Instagram and Facebook started growing organically. Then at that point, we saw this is truly a special marketing platform.
You kind of talk about how you've been able to utilize some of these other platforms. I know entrepreneurs now, they see TikTok, right? It's fast still in terms of being able to grow. I know some people are having harder times if you're just starting up now to grow on Instagram. But in terms of, an app like TikTok, where you've got over 121,000 followers now, you're verified, you've been able to establish your credibility on the platform. Can you talk about how you've been able to use that and why that's advantageous for younger entrepreneurs to start figuring out how to use to help grow their business?
Well, I tell entrepreneurs and even people that want to work in corporate, social media is the modern day master's degree. Because what is a college degree? It proves that you can commit to something and learn a concept. So you're not really learning a skill going to college. You're proving you can commit to something long term and that you can learn something that is probably not going to be practical in the real world. So it shows your level of commitment and your ability to learn. Same thing with social media. Having strong social media presence is a modern day master's degree because it takes a ton of commitment to do a good job on social media. Not only that, once you're working for a company, doing business development or an entrepreneur, growing a brand, that's something you can actually use day one to increase your personal sales or grow your business. So I believe that strong social media is the modern day master's degree.
What are some things that you've been able to use, not just from Monkey in Paradise, but just in general for your own personal brand? I know I've talked to some other entrepreneurs and they say that, yes, a resume, a piece of paper that has everything now, that's still very important if you're applying for a job, but your digital blueprint, that's essentially your resume. That's what you're telling people. And as Les Brown says, as soon as you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. Can you talk about some of the things you look for that have created a strong social media presence for you?
So mine was all organic in just my day-to-day lifestyle. So I'm an extreme thrill seeker. So I get to do a lot of cool things all the time. And all I do is create content from that. There's nothing really planned. So it's just my real day-to-day. So my stories are what's happening. My videos are what we did. So I recommend being yourself, super organic. And then from how I personally benefit from it. My lifelong dream was to fly in a fighter jet, in an Air Force fighter jet. And it's impossible being a civilian. So I said, I'm going to make it happen. Because I love when I hear impossible. Because there's nothing impossible. It's a fake word. And for the past 15 years, I've been reaching out to the Air Force to fly with them with the Thunderbirds. Almost impossible. But I just kept building a resume for myself that listed my digital qualifications. So building the Monkey in Paradise, Instagram, Facebook, my personal accounts, writing for Flying Magazine, writing for Forbes, growing my aviation media channels. I kept building this resume and trying, being shot down. And finally, I met a couple of the team members from the Thunderbirds at an air show. And I told them the story. I showed them my information, and they gave me a maybe. They said, maybe, send us your package. So I got the cell phone number of the decision maker, texted him my package, and stayed on him for the next 6 months. Then I get a text message one night after he went cold saying, hey, Alex, it's on. Here's the paperwork. You're going to fly with the Thunderbirds. So that was my top bucket list thing in my entire life. And I made it happen because of social media.
Alex, that's super cool. I know there's a lot of people who, whether they plan on working in that industry or not, that's still, something that they've heard of. Oh, okay, the Thunderbirds. Wow, that's a cool experience to be able to do. But there was one thing though that you mentioned there that I really want to stick with here, and that was just, I feel like entrepreneurs now. You talked about building, Monkey in Paradise, and then doing this and doing that. Did you focus now? Because what entrepreneurs are trying to do now, it seems like so and so's doing this. Well, so and so's doing that. Instead of focusing on one thing to kind of be great at and then start diversifying and spreading themselves out. It seems like sometimes now people are kind of worried they might be spreading themselves too thin. Can you kind of talk to me? Was that something that was in the back of your mind? Like, hey, I want to get good with Monkey in Paradise. I want to make sure this is a quality brand before I start branching off and thinking about other opportunities?
Absolutely. And it's important at first to have several things going so you can decide really where to focus your energy. But once you find that one, you have to go all in for a long time. So I went all in for a couple of years, then step back. And then I started focusing on aviation and other things. So you need to pick that number one focus and be there. You can still have other things going on the side, but you have to really set your priorities.
Absolutely. What do you do in terms of like daily maintenance or weekly maintenance that keep you performing at a high level in all areas? So you can be Alex, the friend. So you can be Alex, the co-founder of Monkey in Paradise. So you can be Alex, you're running the Instagram account or you're running a TikTok. What do you do to keep yourself and keep your mind right to be, in a peak state?
I hang out with the right people. So everybody I hang out with is successful, like me, and we lift each other up. So a really important thing is to find the right circle, make sure it's people that you want to be like, and I cannot stress how important that is. So that's where opportunities come from. That's where ideas come from. So for me, my most important thing is my circle of people I surround myself with. Keeps me motivated, keeps fresh ideas in my head, and it's just so important to what I do.
Yeah, Alex, I'm a firm believer of kind of what you put out, you'll attract. Right? What you think you become, what you feel you'll attract. And I just think that you talk about your immediate group of friends now that you've been able to kind of put together here through, meeting them along your journey. But I assume there was a point in time that I think some other entrepreneurs right now are experiencing where you're alone, right? Because you either separated yourself from the current friend group you had. It's not saying you can't be friends with those people, right? But ultimately you decided, hey, I got to focus on me. If I want this to work, this is going to require more of me than I ever have, in anything I've done. And so when you do stuff like that, you think about what will that attract for you then long term. But at the time you're saying, wow, I'm not going out. I'm not going to parties. I don't have much money, and I'm not necessarily getting all the girls or guys, whatever the case may be. What was that like for you? Did you ever experience a period of time where you felt like maybe you were alone and you were trying to just work on you? And what did you do, if you did, to kind of help you get through that?
So I've experienced times where I have rotated my friend circle for sure. But I think it's so important not to put your head down and just be 100% work. I think that's unhealthy. I think it's unmotivating. And I've seen people do that. That say, I'm just going to focus on myself and my business for a couple of years. And they're mentally unhealthy. So I strongly advise against that. I think it's important to have people around you that motivate you and bring you up. So I'm not a put your head down, be alone guy. I'm never alone, always around big groups, always have an entourage with me, but the right people. So there's a balancing act to changing your friends to not having any friends to just being business oriented. And I think you have to be really careful and walk that fine line. And still live a life and have reason and motivate others and make the people around you happy.
When you think about the people you have around you now, when did you start to meet these people, or were these people you always knew? Because I think it's kind of hard for somebody to say, hey, I just don't know who else is trying to do what I'm trying to do. How did you kind of get that circle of friends that you felt confident about were bringing you up to move you forward?
So it's a combination of some people I knew from the past and then a lot of new people. And aviation is really how I met some of the best people in my life, because pilots are very similar, very alpha successful, self-motivated people. So it's this fraternity of people. When I started flying, I was meeting great people and hanging out with mostly pilots. So that's why flying had such a big impact on me. It created a lot of this circle I have.
I want to kind of go back for a minute here. If you wouldn't mind, just tell me about growing up when you were in, you said, a middle-class family in Buffalo, New York. Were there things that you kind of dabbled with when you were younger? I mean, was it sports? Was it always aviation? Was it, you said you kind of came upon Monkey in Paradise. So being in the alcohol industry wasn't something that, you kind of said, hey, I definitely want to be in the alcohol industry.
No, my advice always was avoid aviation and the alcohol industry. So they're the hardest. I mean, any sexy business, avoid it. I mean, I've always said that because it's the lowest odds of success and the most competitive. And a lot of people are doing it just for the sexy part and not even to make money. But to get back to your question, in elementary school, I was selling fireworks in the school bus. In middle school, I was selling fake Oakley sunglasses. High school, I was installing car stereo systems, CD players, and subwoofer enclosures in people's cars. Freshman year of college, I started a .com stereo business. So I was drop shipping all the products from my college dorm room. So I've always been entrepreneurial, always doing what it takes to make it.
Did you always have that support system, Alex? It sounds like whether kind of it was your home or your friends, you had this, hey, I'm just going to trial and error. I'm just going to go after this. If it fails, it fails. I'm just going to keep trying. Did you always have that support system in place?
I always had the whole traditional family, mom and dad still together. They both worked full time, middle class, suburban lifestyle. So I think that's definitely an advantage.
I mean, how big of a help was that for you?
Well, I think it's a huge help because being here in West Palm Beach, I see these people that came from rich families and they're very unmotivated. They don't work. They're not entrepreneurial. And they don't like people like me that work hard. So it's a really interesting difference in personalities. And my friends are not old money and don't come from wealth. They're all self-made. So we kind of attract similar people. But I don't see many people that come from wealth that are happy. The wealthy people I do know, most of them I think are trade places with me. And I'm not even wealthy yet. So the jets I fly, the exotic cars I drive aren't mine. I mean, there are people I know that trust me, that know that I can fly at a high level, that I can drive any car, race any boat. So I put together this awesome circle of successful people. And that's how I have access to all these cool toys I do create content with. And it motivates me to work harder, to be there, to get to the point where I can have my own plane. So I'm not there yet, but it's coming. It's going to happen.
Absolutely, dude. I completely believe in you and in that process as well. What is something that you look back on and you say, I wish I would have known this, that you can kind of give to some other entrepreneurs now that may allow them to kind of get by some of the obstacles you faced?
Well, I'm going to go back to social media. If you're not learning it and getting good on it, you need to do it now. Also, you have to be ahead of the next platforms that are coming. Right now, TikTok is hot. 90% of my effort is TikTok. Then I just repurpose for Instagram and Facebook. That's all pay to play now. So I recommend finding the next platform, learn it. So big believer in social media.
I think that's super, super great. Alex, where can people go to find more about you, learn more about what you're doing now, what you plan on doing in the future, and just the history about you?
Sure. So my TikTok is just my first name, last name, Alex Kowtun. Instagram handle is just the word successful. Can't forget that one. And then Aviation Daily is the aviation platform. Facebook, Alex Kowtun, first name, last name. And then if you just Google me, you can find my Forbes profile where I have a whole series of articles that I've written and things that I'm inspired by and truly believe.
Yeah, Alex, I wanted to kind of move over to that a little bit here. How did you kind of come across getting into Forbes? Obviously, it's a huge accomplishment for anybody to be named in there. And I know that they kind of mention entrepreneurs, and you've even been on the list here for 2021 for the next 1,000. I know I saw that. If you can kind of just talk about how you got into that and why that's just such a big accomplishment for you and just for anyone.
Sure. So I don't even like writing. I mean, it's painful for me. I need to be really inspired. So I can never be a paid writer. It needs to be something that's happened to me, some sort of value for me to deliver. But what happened was people liked the Monkey in Paradise story and how we created it. So Florida Weekly newspaper reached out to me for a meeting. I said, okay, I'll meet. They said, Alex, you should have your own column in the newspaper. I said, okay, I'm not much of a writer, but I'll give it a shot. So I had my own column there, and I was writing an article every other week. And I kind of enjoyed it, did well with it. Then that turned into Forbes. Then my ultimate magazine I wanted to write for was Flying Magazine. That's on every news shelf all over the world, and flying is my passion. So I was even able to do a feature article in Flying Magazine. But once again, for that feature, it was something that I was really inspired by. I couldn't write an article every week.
I think that's really important too. If you're passionate about something versus if you're kind of being saying, hey, I need you to do this. I think there's a lot of people, if it's a task, if it's just one or two things, right, that's great. But if it's something like it's a job, like 9 to 5, and you're being told, hey, you got to do this for 9-10 hours a day, that's when people start to say, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be more.
If I was told to write on this topic and these constraints, I'd have zero interest.
Yeah, Alex, and I think that's a big proponent for why a lot of entrepreneurs get started here. It's really, really, really interesting. But working under somebody else's brand, you realize that there's a set of standards that they want to maintain, not just in terms of quality, but there's a consistency with the product that they know that they need to continue to put out in order to get that same response from their consumer base. With you and just with other entrepreneurs who have had success, creating your own brand, I think is something that you guys have kind of manifested and been able to do on a large scale that sets you apart, right? I mean, there's some flexibility and freedom to be able to do something like that. Can you talk about how that's kind of made the process of becoming an entrepreneur and maybe some of those late nights or early mornings, whatever the case may be, worth it?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of hard times too. I mean, we're talking about the best. So there's so many failures and trials and errors, and that's just a part of entrepreneurship. But once things do start going right, it's the best feeling in the world. So that's what's really rewarding when you do start doing good things. And there's a lot of sleepless nights. I mean, I spent over a year, maybe a year and a half, just on the road, different hotels almost every day. And I got to the point where I was losing my mental health. I'm in a hotel room and I'm going to the elevator and I don't know if it's left or right, forgetting what floor I'm on. Like, why can't I perform basic tasks? So there's a lot of hard things that come with it. But in the end, it's really worth it if you put it all in to achieve your dream.
Do you remember, is there one time that you look back on, Alex, and you say, this time stood out from the rest that was just really, really tough? Whether it was an obstacle or a point in your life, or not even necessarily, maybe it was something with the business, but where you kind of just said, yes, I want to be an entrepreneur, but man, I got to get through this. And it just seemed like, man, I don't know if I could.
In 2007, that's when the economy crashed. I had over 100 employees in one of my call center businesses. We went from doing great to losing 6 figures per month. And we lost it all. Personal guarantees on loans as well. So it was from doing great on this huge trend up to being so negative, so deep, it seemed impossible to recover. So I lost it all. I mean, I moved back home with my parents, not making any money, huge personal debt. Then looked at it, said, what can we do? And we figured out a way to outsource the functions of the employees we had. We started outsourcing that and then becoming profitable again, getting back on our feet. And then the great thing that happened, didn't have a staff anymore. So I said, what am I doing in Buffalo, New York? I can live anywhere. So I went straight to West Palm Beach, paradise. It changed my life. Everything I love is here. I hated cold weather. You have the exotic cars here. You have the speedboats here. You have the airplanes and aviation here. You have successful people from all over the world here. So as hard as that was, as awful it was, if that didn't happen, I'd still be in Buffalo, New York, and probably miserable, even if I was doing well financially. And I'd be stranded there. So it was the best thing and worst thing that's ever happened to me.
What did you learn about yourself throughout that time that you don't feel like maybe you would have been able to appreciate or learn if you didn't go through that experience?
I learned that you can do whatever you want if you want it bad enough. I mean, you can move. Moving's hard, but shouldn't you live someplace you're happy? I mean, if you're going to wake up every day and work, shouldn't you love it? For the same price I was paying in Buffalo, in a high-rise condo building, living on the water with a rooftop pool overlooking the ocean on the 23rd floor, with the greatest lifestyle I could ever imagine. For the same price I was paying in Buffalo. So I learned that you have to really open up your eyes and make yourself happy. Put yourself where you want to be and figure out what makes you happy. It made me work harder. It made life better. So as bad as it is what happened, I learned, that's what it took for me to learn that we can move. We're not a tree. I mean, a tree can't move. We can live where we want and motivate ourselves.
Alex, you've experienced a lot of success, and I realize that some of the other entrepreneurs that I've had on the show as well, when you reach that amount of success, it's incredible. But then you have to ask yourself this question that, hey, what I'm doing here helped me get here. If I want to get here, I'm going to have to do things I haven't done before. And I'm going to have to just kind of find ways to continue to make this motivating for me so that the purpose for me is still there like it was when I had nothing. What are some of those short-term goals or long-term goals now that you kind of keep in mind here that get you through whatever it is, those little humps now where you kind of say, well, man, I've already gotten here. I could stop. Everything would be okay. What kind of keeps you going there?
I always need a new challenge, something bigger. So my number one bucket listing was flying with a Thunderbird. So now I have to outdo that. And it's impossible pretty much, but I like impossible. So personally, I have to keep overachieving. But what makes me happiest is making those around me happy. So my ultimate goals are to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. And that's why I work so hard. And to pull that off would take massive, massive success, but that's what I'm driven to do.
When it's all said and done, what kind of impact do you want to have on the industry and the industries you're currently working in? And what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I want to innovate the industries to modern days. So the liquor industry and aviation industry, their marketing is still 20 years behind. They don't understand social media. They don't understand digital. So I want to truly be the innovator of digital in the two industries. Legacy to leave behind is obviously innovating those industries, keeping the youth excited about aviation, and making everybody around me have a better life experience and happiness.
I love that, man. For other entrepreneurs, what are some things that they can do on a daily basis? Is it journaling? Is it doing anything in particular that can keep them hungry and really motivated to keep going on the days they don't want to do it?
Help every person you can. I respond to every DM. I talk to everybody that I possibly can. Anybody that comes up to me when I'm out, I'm friendly with, I will hang out with. So I think you need to stay grounded by being humble with the people around you, motivating them and helping them. And it is so rewarding to do for you. You will enjoy it. It pays back in dividends, I truly believe.
Couldn't agree more, man. Guys, if you haven't checked out Alex, if you haven't gone to the liquor store and you're 21 and over here, I promise it's not fake liquor. He's not selling you those fake Oakleys anymore. This is the real deal. All right. And what you see is what you get. His work ethic, the humble kind, moving forward, telling you like it is. That's the authenticity that I think nowadays, that if you spend too much time on social media and you're not looking at the right things, you ultimately lose. And I think it's important that you create, like he talked about, that friend group for yourself to where you can grow, you can bounce ideas off, but they'll also tell you, hey man, I know you're doing a great job, but I think you could do this better, and allow you to push forward, motivate you to be the best version of yourself. I really do appreciate you coming on the show, man. Thank you again. And I hope to work with you and have you in person here down the road.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me, Ari, and I wish everybody the best. Have a great one.